All right, well, looks like the halftime show's over, but thank you very much, Tice, for joining us. And hometown crowd, give a round of applause for Tice for coming out, show your support. Thanks very much, Tice. But yeah, it's about ready to get underway with the first elimination match of the day. So let's go ahead and bring out our first player, hailing from Europe. It's Orange.
Elimination match underway. 2 Europeans fighting off. Don't you dare compare that man to apples.
And his opponent, fellow European. Whole family's here to support him. Please welcome to the stage, Hoej.
Hoej coming off an amazing wing at Springs. Can back it up here.
Elimination match number 1. Hoej versus Orange.
Orange is really good. Like I think like Orange's strength is normally deck building because like he has some really good practice partner and friends.
Yeah, huge respect for Hoej. Probably one of my favorites to going in before seeing any decks. So like he's one of the strongest players in the tournament.
His technical place is probably not like the highest. It's really good. Like, but if I have to compare it to like Colento or Mercy and such, so sometimes he makes some technical mistakes.
He has a very distinct play style, and we were pretty sure that we knew what he was going to be doing before even submitting decks for this tournament. He ended up doing exactly that, and he is frankly very good at doing that. So we're definitely one of the players I'm most scared of facing in the tournament.
Hoej versus Orange. Let's do this.
We are back and ready to go. The first elimination match of the day. Europe not doing too great, but I prefer to look on the bright side of things and saying, well, at least someone's going to win this one and get through.
I guess I'll be the glass half empty guy then. One of them's going 0-2 out of the group, and honestly, I don't think too many people would have placed their bets on either of these players. Two huge names with huge storied histories. One of them is going to go out on day one.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, you just look at the players, and no matter who's going to lose out, it's not going to, it's not going to look too good and going to be probably unexpected. But why do you think these guys haven't been going so well so far?
I mean, it's tough to say. Obviously, it's a small sample size. You can just get the one guy in your group that has a rough matchup for you. You can have one run of games in your one match where you just don't get the draws you need. In Orange's case, it was particularly bizarre because all of his losses, he went 0-3 with his favorite deck, the deck that he considers himself to be one of the best players at, the deck that he's put the most practice into, and arguably the best deck in the entire format, Raza Priest. And yet he went 0-3 with that against some pretty solid matchups for himself.
Yeah, and let's take a look at the lineups overall. I had a quick word with Hoej before he went up on stage, and I said, how are you feeling? Rough loss early on. What's going through your mind? He said, well, I'm feeling okay. I'm favored, in this matchup. And then there was a small pause, and he went, yeah, I was also favored in the last one as well. So, there's just a bit of a note, but I think he's experienced enough to be cool, calm, collected, same as Orange. But I will say that the guys mentioned it just then in the halftime show that a sticking point for me is this Hunter from Orange and how it's going to get the win. But we're kicking off game number 1. It's not going to be Hunter. It's going to be Orange's Priest versus Hoej's Paladin. Orange may be trying to just kick this Priest into line a little bit and get a win under his belt pretty quick.
Yeah, very true. And there are definitely ways that you can put the Paladin deck together to get extra percentages against Priest and make it a potentially favorable matchup for you, which, of course, if you're a smart player and you're leaving Priest open, then you are aiming to do that as much as possible and try and rush them down, overwhelm them with that Murloc aggro knife juggler call to arms kind of flood before they can really get any work done.
Yeah, there's even a nod with the one Divine Favor in this list, which is, if you look at ladder and look at this tournament, Warlock in a Controller Cube style and Raza Priest are exceptionally popular. They like to draw cards and hold cards, so this Divine Favor that's in the Hoej's Paladin could be absolutely insane. Paladin, especially at the moment, is amazing at just splurging onto the board, right? Whether it be Murlocs or just the other aggressive minions in the more faceless. They just want to dump everything onto the board and overrun you, and then they need that refund. That's where that Divine Favor comes in. But what else is sticking out for you in this deck?
Other than that, it's a fairly standard Murloc aggro list that we're looking at, but there is the Finger in there, which isn't even... Before, it was like the power card of the deck. Like, Finger was the first card you put in there, and then you played 29 other cards. these days, Finja quite often just doesn't make the cut, but we are seeing it in Hoej's list here for this tournament.
It definitely feels weird to say Finja isn't standard in a Murloc deck.
Right.
Because it's like the card is so powerful in that tribe. But Call to Arms has a lot to say about that, right?
Yep.
Call to Arms is 1 mana cheaper and does the job instantly without having to trade with anything. So I think that's why it's just been overtook a little bit, but Hoej's running both.
And there's also the corridor creeper issue, right? If your turn is to play Finja and your opponent can just say, all right, slam a 5/5. You know, a lot of the time your Finja just isn't getting the job done. There isn't that small target for it to then trade into.
Okay, a couple of Murlocs available for Hoej. He might actually, I won't call it a whiff, but miss the chum onto the Inquisitor, so won't get the instant buff if he wants to go for that. But he will be able, by playing them both, to actually kill off this Cleric. Very, very important here. You don't want to, although I said, you know, Divine Favor is great for drawing cards from Priest, you would still rather them have none in hand than a big handful.
Yeah, the delay this turn from Hoej is purely a matter of sequencing. Whether he wants the chance of the extra stats this turn on the Vilefin, or whether he wanted to guarantee it on the Cold Light Seer for next turn, because the Cold Light Seer is almost certainly his play on the following turn with this setup. So he may have just wished to invest the stats on that. Decides otherwise, takes the 2/4. I think this ends up being the correct decision.
Yeah, this is Raza is in hand here for Orange, but this is one of those decks in form of the Murloc Paladin that can go too fast for Priest to just play the usual game, right? I think it's similar to Hunter as well. Hunter can just go that one step a bit quicker. Because even Rogue, you quite often see the Rogue play quite slowly in this matchup versus Priest.
Right.
But Paladin and Hunter, they put the foot down on the gas and just go and hope you don't have the answers early on.
I think, if anything, we've seen 1 or 2 Rogue players attempt to play too quickly against Priest in this tournament, and they've just been out-resourced and just run out of stuff instead of, you know, stretching out with Minstrels and using their hero power when possible. So you're absolutely right. Some aggro decks, like Rogue, do try to go card for card. Yeah, Murloc Paladin not really going to do that. You just got to get the damage in as quick as you can. Orange, however, haven't really mentioned, he 3-kept in this matchup. He kept a Potion of Madness, Radiant Elemental, and Priest of the Feast, picked up a Northshire Cleric to then support that in the opening hand. So he had a ton of tools to shut down this opener, and you see there, something as simple as Radiant Elemental, Potion of Madness has just ripped the heart and soul out of this start from Hoej. He basically has to start from scratch all over again.
Yeah, but Paladin's got so good at that now. You know, the Divine Favor I talked extensively about earlier on, and the Call to Arms is like, those are just one card. You just draw one card, and suddenly that makes more, right? And it's something that Paladin has generally struggled with. Once you're out of cards, it's like, well, you know, I hope I draw, you know, cards like Tyrion, or, you know, maybe this like Corridor Creeper to just put some kind of threat on the board. But Paladin can just go and go and go, and it's not uncommon to see Paladin actually hit fatigue in matchups like this, right? Where the Priest is just trying to clear the board, and then the Paladin has used so many Call to Arms, a big Divine Favor, and they're actually like near the end of their deck, and you're like, well, what's kind of happened here?
Yeah, even with only 1 copy of Divine Favor in the deck, it's kind of scary how many cards this deck, quote, draws. Like, Call to Arms isn't actually card draw, but it thins your deck so much that you then have less cards to draw when you do fire off your Divine Favor.
Now, I think the biggest point for Orange here, and, you know, point solved, I guess, now, is how he's using this coin. Playing the Priest of the Feast now opens up a potential Power Word shield next turn, as Hoej would need 2 more damage to be able to kill the Priest of the Feast this turn. So I think this coin opens up the most options immediately for Orange, but you always have to sit and just think about this, because coin is such an impactful card.
And also, remember the point that Purple brought up at Summer Championships about Orange's ability as a player going through the roof when he knows which cards are in his opponent's deck. If on ladder, maybe this is a turn where Orange plays scared of something like Blessing of Kings.
Sure.
Blessing of Kings he knows is not an option in his opponent's deck, so he just said, you know what? Priest of the Feast, you cannot challenge this with anything that I'm particularly scared of. So if you find the extra damage to kill this, it's something that I'm happy to face on the following turn. And again, this is something that Purple brought up originally to me, and then we asked Orange about, and he confirmed himself that he would love to play open deck list all day, every day, and thinks he's a much stronger player in this format.
Yeah, and a lot of times we've seen that have been open. I mean, his first HCT, you know, push with open deck lists, and he is sat at the World Championship playing out now. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be the adapt here, and just going to gain some health there just to keep this Vilefin that's looking a lot sturdier than when you originally play it as a 2/5 on the board now.
So I think Orange, there's been a kind of backstory to all of his plays so far where he's just tried to keep his hand size low to stop a Divine Favor blowout coming at any turn. It's another byproduct of throwing away the coin on the Priest of the Feast, is that he got it out of his hand. But now he's faced with a handful of card draw cards. He had Power Word Shield, he has Acolyte of Pain. These are all cards that will eventually replace themselves as a Hoej. There you go. I was going to say, he's just hiding his face. You can't quite see the resemblance just yet, but that is, in fact, the twin brother of Hoej.
Hey, fingers crossed indeed. And I think, to be honest, the body language tells the story, right? This is important to his brother, it's important to Hoej, it's important to his family. And it was just the tense, you know, we've all been there watching a friend play, right, when it's important. Very, very tense, and these two are very close.
They are indeed. I was actually matched against Hoej's twin brother in the opening round of a DreamHack, and he no-showed. And I spent the whole time thinking I was playing against this Hoej that you see playing against Orange right now, because I just saw the name Hoej and assumed it. He didn't show up. I waited as long as I thought was reasonable, and then I called an admin, asked for the death win, etc. 20 minutes later, the real Hoej sees...
The real Hoej? His brother isn't fake. He's not an imaginary brother.
The alpha Hoej approached me and just decided to troll the living hell out of me, saying, "Oh, why did you take the death win? I was only 20 minutes late. Such a scumbag. Why have you got to scum me out of DreamHack?" The whole time it was just his brother, and he arrived late.
Anyone trolling you, I approve of.
I do too.
And I love Hoej anyway, so can only get better from here. Although, Hoej's hand, not exactly amazing. There's like this one push he can do, and then he really needs the Divine Favor, the Call to Arms, like the two key refills that we've seen. Or, you know, or Finger as well. Finger will work as a refill to a large extent if he can get the trade off. Also, always a little bit scared about how to set this turn up, because this feels like the old days when you were like, juggler with Acolyte on board.
Right.
Do I really want to put 5 damage into an Acolyte just to guard against the potential juggles, getting multiple card draws? The answer is yes, often, especially against Priest, with no cards in hand. You really want to reduce them down, because you mentioned earlier, Orange will want to reduce his hand size.
Right.
He's still playing Raza Priest, like he still wants to draw enough cards to actually deal with these threats and then kill his opponent.
Yeah, and the problem with taking this kind of strategy, especially against a deck that only plays one Divine Favor, so is much more unlikely to draw it, is that individually, card for card, your deck has a lot of low-value options in it. You can be, on any given turn, drawing a Circle of Healing, a Binding Heal, a Holy Smite, things that don't have a huge impact on the board state, whereas Murloc Paladin is actually full of quite impactful cards: Gentle Megasaurs, Call to Arms, Spike Ridge Steeds, Sunkeeper Tyrant, Corridor Creepers. So if you come down to this kind of empty hand versus empty hand top deck situation, even though you're the control deck as the Priest, quite often you're going to lose that value game.
Yep.
So I do actually favor in a lot of situations just rolling back the clock a little bit and defaulting to kind of that cycle game, making sure you do pick up those combos to pair together, as well as the 5 and 8 that you need.
Yeah, you just kind of just go in, right? And then just play the game out. Another Sacred Maul choice. For those maybe slightly unfamiliar with the way the unidentified weapons work, is when you draw it, it takes on a property. There's Divine Shield to all your minions, 2 1/1s when you play the weapon, +1 attack, and Taunt.
Yeah, and Taunt is actually the only one that really happens in an actual live game of Hearthstone. Anyone who says they've rolled anything but Taunt is a liar, as far as I'm concerned, because it's 100% Taunt for me every single time you draw it.
It's just untrue. I feel like I'm talking to Admirable now.
The empirical evidence that I'm looking at right now seems to be backing me up. As well.
With a huge sample size of this game.
Yeah.
Okay, good talk. Normally this talk's the other way around. It's true. It's you trying to infer logic onto me, but it's nice to mix it up now and again.
The word you're looking for was part. Carry on, sir.
I actually stopped listening. You're talking that much nonsense, Sol. See what Glimmerroot gives Orange. Brimscale Chum, not exactly the most impactful card, although it is a minion he can play this turn, so you could look at it that way and just say, well, it's another minion I can put on the board. Maybe it survives the juggles, maybe, I can trade with it. Not terrible, but definitely not great. Right. I don't even know what you would want from Hoej's deck at this point. Maybe a weapon? It's kind of a weird deck to play against with a
Right.
card like Glimmerroot, right?
Yeah, I mean, so I think Tarim would be okay.
Corridor Creeper.
I think if you got offered Call to Arms in the right situation, say you still had Loot Hoarder and Blood Mage left in your deck, that would be kind of reasonable, but yeah, it's not really
Oh no,
a
it
deck.
wouldn't work. What am I talking about? Huh? For some reason, I do that sometimes. It's very similar to the Glimmerroot issue where you presume it's Discover. Sometimes if you just turn off a little bit. Actually, if Call to Arms is just summon like 3 minions.
Remember that conversation we just had about who was talking nonsense?
Well, we had to revert back to the
Gotcha.
norm,
Right,
right?
right,
We had
right,
to
right,
flick back to
right,
it somehow,
right.
so I decided to take the hit on that one. Orange is only really a spell or 2 away from this Pyromancer really getting work done.
Must move quickly.
It's whether he has time.
Yeah, Hoej is only a turn or 2 from ending Orange's
Yeah.
life here for the 4th straight game as Priest in this tournament. Just protecting these double jugglers as best he can.
I think you have to go for it, right?
What
Well,
is it in
what-
this scenario, Raven?
Definitely Velen. No, I was actually thinking of just Pyro Loot Hoarder, Mind Blast go. Draw with the Loot Hoarder, try and get another another spell. Another cheap spell, of course.
So your outs at that point are Binding Heal and Holy Smite. Circle of Healing would be castable, but wouldn't work, so it would heal up all the 2 health minions first.
Yep. I think you might have to do... It's desperate, but I think you have to do desperate things when this sort of situation arises.
So that gives you a, 13% out to find the card you need with 16 cards left. The alternative is, as you said, just playing Velen, essentially to contest the
Yeah.
board. Does that give you more than a 13% chance of winning the game? I think it probably does.
Also gives him a Spirit Lash out the turn after, I guess.
Right.
Is make 1/2 out, so to speak,
Right.
if you went for the AoE.
You live in a world where your opponent does not draw Sunkeeper Tarim this turn,
Yeah.
and then you just try and calculate your
Yeah.
outs from that point, and they're probably better than the Pyro Loot Hoarder turn.
Yes. Velen soaking up some damage here, or some juggles, should I say. But he's going to really put a lot of this minion damage into Velen. That's one of the weird things about this card. Normally, 9 times out of 10 it gets played and then you die, right? Or you kill your opponent. But Velen cannot just be ignored and smoked past, right? The idea of it double healing is too much of an issue, so Hoej has to kill it, which does buy Orange even more time. It wasn't just the 4 heal, or even it was like the almost the 7 damage as well itself. Right.
Must move quickly.
Corridor Creeper is in hand though, so all these trades of small minions are only going to help Hoej drop this 5/5. I thought you put the juggler into the Velen then. It's like, should I put the Murloc?
It was actually a lot of weird sequencing concerns that turn, because he was trying to work out whether he wanted to trade first, which could occasionally, reduce the Corridor Creeper even more, and then if the knives go in the right place, then maybe you get an extra hero power at the end of the turn, but if you do that and the knives go wrong, suddenly you're in a huge mess. So he just decided to take the safe line of just dropping it for 6.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And to be honest, as we mentioned earlier, this is an elimination match. Sometimes, I think it was Frozen who was talking about it when we were interviewing him. He said he does think at the end of the day, there's a right and wrong play, but he was very, very adamant that when you were sat on that stage, you may make different choices that aren't completely optimal because of levels of pressure and levels of uncomfort.
Right, I mean, that's the reason why we haven't just scripted 2 robots to sit and play this game, right? Like, the human element
Most of us have it.
Can you actually calculate the correct plays in the time you are given? Can you then execute those plays in the time that you're given? Something that we saw Samuel Sao, quite frankly, fail to do earlier in the day. So there are various human imperfections that come into a game of Hearthstone, and that's what makes the entire endeavor interesting.
It's interesting because we're bad.
Yeah.
Hey, Valfin does give Hoej a double hero power this turn, if he so desires, but these are definitely weird draws from Hoej. No Spite Ridge, no Finger, no Megasaur, no Call to Arms. All these cards will be heavily impactful, whereas I feel like Hoy's kind of drawing the weaker end of the stick in terms of the deck.
Let me think.
I do like this. If we go back to that split decision of the pyro turn for kind of the YOLO out versus the Prophet Velen, the Velen has bought him just that little bit of time here that's allowed him to develop the Loot Hoarder on a turn where he doesn't need to play the Pyro alongside it, which then suddenly opens up all these extra outs like Shadow Visions, Shadow Deathbit had a target, all of those extra cards
Pyro still in hand.
can suddenly make a huge difference. Not to mention, if he draws Dragonfire Potion at basically any point this game, then he's in business as well, even without the Pyromancer. His deck is stacked with answers to this board state with that Pyromancer in hand.
Here's my question.
Go on.
Do you Visions first? Just to draw Dragonfire? Or is that too risky?
Yes!
What? There are other cards that are okay.
Yes, that is too risky, Raven.
Oh! Misplay. Should have.
Well, I mean, no.
Let's do the maths. How many spells does he have?
Binding Heal, Holy Smite 2, Spirit Lash 3, Shadow of Pain 4, Shadow of Death 5, Dragonfire Potion, Psychic Scream 7.
Yes. Would have always been Dragonfire then.
Well, the point is, you can do this with Shadow Visions and Mind Blast.
And the whole Dragonfire.
And then still have a Dragonfire Potion in your hand after.
I'm joking, you know that.
Well, it's hard to tell sometimes, Raven.
Just role-playing you for the start of this game. Hydrologist, not again what Hoej's looking for. We'll help with the secret. You can potentially, bounce a minion back with Kodo, so there's some level of value. It's not great value, but it's better than nothing.
Right.
And I imagine he's going to go for Code War Redemption. Repentance does nothing, especially now Velen's gone. It's not even going to give you a chance at hitting that big minion to get a good trade-off.
Hydrologist, widely regarded to be perhaps the weakest card in this deck these days, but kind of a necessary evil just to keep the Murloc count high enough for it to function as a Murloc deck. It was a card that was very, very exciting when it first came out. The power levels seemed to be through the roof, but it's tailed off significantly in recent times.
Yeah, and the power of the card is also kind of meta-dependent to a certain extent, because look how good it is versus the Eluna mage, right? Oh, they play 2 counter spells. Okay, 1 mana, go away counter spell.
Yeah. Also, Mirror Entity and counter spell.
Yeah.
In one,
and also to another certain extent, the quest mages or the freeze mage style decks where you can potentially get eye for an eye.
Right.
I'm not saying it's fantastic, but it was something that could win you games. Now it's just more of, as you said, just filler, to be completely honest. Lyra? Is the draw here from Orange? Does have Circle of Healing to start going off? And I think the majority of the pre-spells will be cheap enough to follow up with at least one more. But Orange has to really consider, is that one more enough? Does he need to do it this turn? Could he just clear the board this turn? Does he just hero power past this turn? This, with only 3 cards and very limited options outside of Lyra potential, this looks straightforward, but it really isn't. Orange going for the Dragonfire. Now, that might have just looked okay because, empty board, he gets a 1/3, who cares? But a call to arms coming out would be very scary now, because that was pretty much your AoE done. You've already done your Pyro. There's not a lot left.
Well, here's the problem with leaving the board up, though, is suddenly Megasaur is a lethal out. Murloc War Leader is another horrible card that can come out and punish Sunkeeper Tarim, and so on.
Very tricky.
Yeah, I think Orange, just about on balance, so it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. There are cards your opponent can top deck that will punish you in both situations, but I think there's only really one call to arms remaining that can instantly refill to the point where you feel you would need to AoE again.
Yeah, and I don't think Finger on its own is enough of a threat, because you could just choose not to give him a minion that he can kill easily, especially with the lack of Blessed Kings, for example.
What I will say in a counter-argument to that, though, is that because Hoej chose Getaway Kodo, quite intelligently recognizing that he would get the first minion played back in his hand, the Vilefin, it does actually let him re-flood this board immediately with the double hero power. So Orange has actually put himself right back in the same spot, the way it has panned out, that all of those same draws are lethal again anyway.
Okay, well, let's see what Lyra can do for Orange. Let's get off the pint size, but that's a swing and a miss for that one. The Devour Mind, far too expensive to play. And that is not what Orange wanted to see. Head in hands again.
12 in
3
play.
damage, is that too much to ask? It is this turn.
Corridor Creeper did not do it. Spike Ridge Steed would have done the job.
Man.
Tarim would have done the job. Gentle Megasaur would have done the job. War Leader number 2, Rallying Blade, Divine Favor rebuys all of those cards. That was a lot of outs to win the game that turn.
Yeah, that was kind of rough. 12 cards left. That was actually kind of nuts.
He was
wasn't
above
it?
50%.
I was
He was above 50-50
I'm just
to-
staring at the list. I'm like,
Right.
it was kind of ludicrous he didn't draw damage there to end the
Yeah,
game.
when you calculate in like the Divine Favor rebuys as
Oh,
well,
yeah,
he
even-
was above
that's
50-50 to win that game by a distance.
Hoej has a very tough decision now. Do you kill Lyra? Because Lyra over Gadgetzan is often the choice in this deck. And one thing that maybe people don't talk about too much because you shouldn't really evaluate on what could happen in a game, but Lyra can get some really stupid things to happen and pull you out of really weird spots. Oh my god. Oh! There's a fist pump. the Holy Smite, not the draw Orange was after. Can't quite kill off this War Leader, and the War Leader is the one, you know, with the large range of damage because of that hero power.
Ooh. That Spike Ridge might just be a win condition for Orange, but in the meantime...
There's still a lot of damage.
Yes.
Hoej can pull. This is so close.
Crucial decision towards the end of the last turn as well is whether Hoej wanted to sink damage face or trade into that Blood Mage. Spirit Lash still remaining in Orange's deck, which was the big threat if he left that Blood Mage in play.
That's definitely the scary point there. And these are all, you know, game-ending cards that these players have to think about in high-pressure scenarios like this. I'm glad we're just talking about the game.
Wish to live forever.
All right, remember all of those cards I named last turn?
Again.
Yeah.
Oh, was that Finja? How many Murlocs are left? There's War Leader left, 2 Rock Pools, 1 Tidecaller. And so they're the Murlocs that can get pulled by Finja once Finja, and if Finja can even kill the minion that it's trying to attack. The problem here, it's Hoej isn't only having to consider, but he probably doesn't really have to consider much of Orange's deck. He has to think of what were those Devour Mind cards.
Right.
That's the scary part. What does he lose to in his own deck? Spike Ridge kind of has to be on the radar. If it's just 2 Murlocs, whatever. Like, Hoej isn't really too concerned with that. But if it's Spike Ridge or Tarim, then that could be a problem.
I mean, is it whatever? Orange has a Tidecaller in play right now. Do you have to trade through that Tidecaller because of the threat of those cards being 2 Murlocs, like War Leaders and Rockpool Hunters, that can then take really nasty trades on your board? Hoej says
I
no.
mean, well, the Finja helps though, right?
Right.
Like, Tidecaller is, okay, it's only got 5 health. The Talon Priest only has 4. There's only limited things that can happen that would mean that Finja couldn't get the kill. Oh, War Leader.
This is going to hurt if you are a member of the Hoej family.
There's the blink and the quick look over to Orange from Hoej. Or from on stage Hoej.
War Leader goes down. The Creeper goes down. 5 health to the Murloc. 5 health, putting him now at what? Effective 24 before this heal. He could probably get greedy here and heal the minion. That's how stable his
He knows
position
there's no
is right
silence.
now. Yeah.
So is Megasaur into Poison the best outcome?
Very similar to Tarim.
Yeah. Well. Okay. You don't get the kill on the second, on the Spike Ridge, the Steed part
me
with the
think.
Tarim, right?
Yeah, you do.
Oh, sorry, of course. Yeah, Finja becomes.
You get a value trade on it as well, as opposed to having to trade in a 1/1 which would die even
Yeah.
though it had poisons.
True. Well, that seems to be the story of the last few turns for Hoej. Not what he needs. What an insane ending to this game. not even saying it's over yet, but just the back end of this game was kind of insane. Both players had opportunities. I mean, if at any point Orange draws Anduin, right? Well, then he would just kill all of Hoej's minions forever, you know, for the rest of the game and then win. At any point Hoej drew any damage for the past couple of turns, same position.
And the rich get richer. Orange picks up 5 more health in Taunt here. Now he has to consider the classic Hearthstone dilemma. What's the safer play here? Trading away to play around things like Megasaur and Tarim, or just going face to end the game immediately?
Is Elun's will.
Always smoke. This is my response. Is there a way you can go halfway between and still set up lethal? Probably not, right? Because if poison comes out, you may as well trade. The poison's the thing you're kind of afraid of because your highest attack minion is the 6/11.
I am very much of the persuasion here that he does not lose this game if he just kills things until Hoej runs out of things.
I mean, that's how it would normally work, right?
Yeah.
Especially because Orange has been low on resources all game. If he had the Anduin, he would just be hero powering minions down every single turn without a doubt. There are more. The options get more limiting as time goes on now, and as Orange isn't losing his board, this gets even worse. There's a call to arms at last. Does it matter anymore? You can't even kill anything this turn.
Nope.
Because the second wall leader was actually, oh, yeah, not going to get it.
The Righteous Protector is annoying, not much more than that.
Yeah, it's pesky,
Yeah.
I think it's the key word. Imagine if that was the key word instead of taunt. Pesky. You've got to deal with it before you deal with the main problem.
There's a lot of members of the design team here. You could go pitch that idea to them
Oh,
right now.
I've got stronger ideas than that, so don't you
heard
worry.
a lot of them.
And there is Shadow Reaper, Anduin.
We have a 6/10 though. Quite like our 6/10.
You could just kill stuff though as well. Would you genuinely not play Anduin? You're gonna answer my question.
I really don't see the need to play
Okay,
it.
I'm gonna pass. Doesn't want to reap any shadows today.
Because suddenly, yeah, if you play it, you lose the first half of your Death Rattle Taunt, and then the Poison or the Tarim coming
Sure.
back the other way suddenly leaves you in a pretty rough spot.
So only War Leader left for Finger to pull.
Yes.
So we know that the Finger pull will be that and that alone. The War Leader will give the buff on top of the 3/3 Tyrant effect.
But poor old nerfed War Leader is not going to have much of an impact on this board state.
No.
That one extra health would make all the difference right now.
It really would as well. This could still go either way. Tyram's a really good draw. Quickly. Makes the board.
Wait. Okay. Hoej went to trade and pull his guaranteed War Leader. He knows it's a guaranteed War Leader. There is a card Orange drew last turn that he thought about playing and then did not play. If he pulls his War Leader here, Shadow Reaper Anduin nukes his board. Was that the read he was considering there as he paused?
One way to find out. We'll ask him after the match.
Because that War Leader is actively detrimental.
Yeah. I wonder what card it would have been that wouldn't have been played. Psychic Scream, potentially?
Shadow of Death.
Yeah. Because you don't really want to screen the minions back in, right? If it's the last attempt, you want to scream, say, after attack, for example.
There's an argument to say that he doesn't beat Shadow Reaper Anduin from that position anyway, so he may as well ignore it. That is a line I can get down with.
Game number one.
An incredible game number one to the series, an absolute marathon of a game. And I think, honestly, we set it up. We said that those decks could go toe-to-toe with each other for a very, very long time, despite the matchup not looking like that on the surface.
Yeah, it's definitely nuts. Both players getting really, really close. Very, very close to the end there. but it's going to be Orange that leads 1-0. That was only game number 1 of Orange versus Hoej, playing for the World Championship trophy. We'll be back right after this. Don't. We are back. Orange versus Hoej. Elimination match. Loser goes home, winner stays in the tournament. This is the World Championships. This is everything to play for these two players.
Yeah, so much on the line, and when you've got all of this, you really want those near and dear to you to be supportive, and you can see both of these players, as we look at Hoej's family looking on first and foremost, looking a little bit anxious, and then Orange has his supporters as well. Orange's family have come along to show their support. Orange was a little bit concerned that they weren't getting here on time, but it looks like they made it, and I believe there is no bigger supporter of Orange than that man right there, Purple, who faces Sintalol on Friday in a matchup that he described as the toughest first-round matchup of anyone in the tournament.
Yeah, and it's just going back, it's absolutely huge here. Like, I'm sure most people watching this will understand and agree. As someone who takes games very seriously and games a lot, having your family actually support you is actually huge, and actually, to come out to an event, be there when you're playing and watching, supporting, is absolutely amazing for both these players. It really is a shame we're going to have to see one end their tournament run, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. So Hoej versus Orange. Hoej currently 0-1 down. Orange on the Rogue and Hoej on this Paladin again.
This is one of those matchups where the Paladin this might be the matchup that was keeping Paladin for the most part out of the tournament, because most people would rather be on the Rogue side of this matchup. It is slightly favored according to the data we are being supported by HS Replay, and Orange will hope that this particular matchup reflects that, because we've been seeing quite a lot of matchups go against that data. For example, Priest is heavily favored against Rogue, but we've been seeing Rogues come out on top of that in a few occasions. So Orange will be hoping this one is a bit truer to form.
Yeah, I will say, I think the Rogue swing turn is often too powerful for the Paladin to really come back from. The combination of backstab, SI, Vile Spine, etc. That's kind of difficult for the Paladin to okay, you've just wiped my board and gained tempo. How do I gain that tempo back? The answer is often, oh, I can't.
The answer is Call to Arms. That is basically your card in this matchup.
And I like to just bring a quick focus to the top of the screen, where the Maul is in fact the not the same one. Bug, okay. It's not the taunt-giving Maul, which apparently happens 100% of the time.
Can I call one of the game developers, Ben Brode, XR? I know you're here. I'd like to report a bug. We did not roll taunt on the Maul. That is clearly incorrect.
Which Maul is it? What does that one do? Do you know?
Purifiers is Divine Shield.
Okay. Did you already know that, or did you read it when the card pulled out?
I mean, I would have guessed just because of Purifier. I do always get that one and Sacred mixed up, Sacred being the taunt one, but the fact we've seen Sacred a bunch of times already, I kind of...
We've seen Sacred 100%
100% of the time.
Course, both of our Hearthstone credits.
Process of elimination down.
Good job. Okay, well, a process of elimination of having only the 1/2 drop or hero power. Hoej ended up on the Juggler, knowing it's going to be vanquished this turn, but still has to put something in the way of Orange. As I said, the Paladin in this matchup doesn't really come back from a tempo disadvantage, and turns like this are exactly the problem. Okay, what if a magical coin appears and Call to Arms comes out? Well, guess what? Orange still kind of has the board after that, and
right.
That's it. The Paladin's gonna have an uphill climb here. Hoej's gonna have to be very much on point. He does have a Corridor Creeper. Things can happen with Corridor Creeper. I've heard it's a good card.
I have heard that rumor as well, but it sounds very simple when you really, really break it down, that Murloc Paladin is an aggro deck that likes to stick a minion to the board and then snowball that with buff effects. Tempo Rogue is an aggro deck that excels in breaking early board states and removing early minions with Backstab your guy, SI7 your guy, play South Sea Captain and charge patches into your guy. Basically, your guys die a lot when you're playing against Tempo Rogue, and that's a huge problem if your deck relies on cards like Knife Juggler, Murloc War Leader, Rockpool Hunter, things that want to play with friends.
And already we're starting to see that. Orange appears to be in control of this match, but he did lose his first match, although apparently he was okay with it.
During the summer
love
slams, I actually lost in both the playoffs and the championship. I actually lost my first match of the tournament, and it looked like a very, very uphill battle. I have a good history of performing well under pressure, and I've just been keep doing so. So I guess to some extent that I do perform better under pressure.
I apologize. I got a bit excited, but I really did love that play from Orange.
Shh, Orange is talking.
The value of a Shadow Step in this deck goes down enormously on Keleseth when you've already pulled patches out of your deck. And I've seen way too many people Shadow Step Keleseth way too late in a game. So I saw the Keleseth come down. I saw him reach for the Shadow Step. I was about to go, no! But then Shadow Stepping the SI, much better play in that position.
Yeah, +1/+1 is just enough.
Yeah.
But by now, right? You don't, as you said, you're not doubling up into the captain turn follow up, right? Which is the nuts. It's a crazy strong turn. But yeah, I like this too. And again, like I said, Orange saying, you know, it's okay they lost the first match. You know, it happened. Orange has a crazy amount of tournament experience. Maybe not as high pressure as this, but seems to be doing okay so far. And this is the thing, right? We kind of maybe drawing the point home now. But what does Hoej do? Like, there's a million minions on the board, and yes, there's a one-mana corridor creeper. You can Divine Shield it. Okay, well, what if there's Valspine in hand? You know, you've got to think of backstab Valspine, or even just Valspine turn later. It'll be very tough.
From Hoy's perspective, as he looks at his screen, the correct play right about now is somewhere to the right of that Gentle Megasaur.
In the bottom right of the full screen.
In the bottom right of the screen, you could say yes.
Yeah, good say. Still, no problem with playing it out. It's definitely a rough spot. We've got time. Divine Favor, what he was looking for most of the last game.
Right.
Pointless.
Right.
in this matchup.
And think about how different this could be. It's easy to forget because that game went on 6 or 7 more turns from the point I'm about to mention. Hoej, 2 turns in a row, had above a 50-50 by my calculation for lethal from draws from his deck. And that would be a very different scenario right now if he vanquished the Priest with this Murloc Paladin already, because he wouldn't then have to run this deck into the bad matchup of Tempo.
Yeah, this is definitely very rough. Orange has a Sword of Justice, in case people may not be familiar with this vanilla card. +1/+1 to a minion. It uses a charge when you play it. So, you can get some value out of this. He just gets a bit of a buff on the Elemental. He can either do that, or he can hold on to the Elemental if he's thinking about if he draws Valspine, if he wants Minstrel next turn. You do need that combo effect. He is very far ahead, and he has Leroy in hand, so a lot of the time when you're this far ahead, I don't mind plopping things on the board and going face.
You can also play the kill him so he's dead plan quite effectively with
Yeah,
this
that's
hand
what I
the way
mean,
it
yeah,
lines up.
because of Leroy, right?
Right.
It's like,
Choose soon.
he's going to go for it. Playman Elemental's going to hit the board, gain the +1/+1. Looks like he's thinking about chipping off this chump. But I imagine the rest's going to go to base. Yeah, you don't want to pile into a Divine Shield 5/5 here. You waste too much damage.
Hoej just finding the wrong side of his deck again. He's picked up some of the slower value cards that he would have liked to have seen in the mid-game against Priest in the previous game.
Megasaur, I mean, we saw what? 4 1/1s, Murlocs on the board at one point in that matchup. It's like,
Yeah, I think there was at least one turn where both +1/+1, or sorry, all of +1/+1 Wind Fury and +3 would have been lethal, and then one additional turn where Wind Fury and +3 were lethal. That was on the same turn where there was 6 or 7 other outs plus Divine Favor at least, and that of course brings us around to Divine Favor, which he would have loved to have drawn at any point in that last game, but it's a pretty horrible draw in this matchup against Tempo Road.
yeah. I was going to say, when you say in certain matchups, maybe more for just a straight up aggro Paladin, but in certain matchups, players keep Divine Favor.
Right.
And they're opening hand as well, because
Yeah.
they're like, everything else is 1 and 2 drops and maybe 3 drops. I'll throw it all out and then press Divine Favor in Priest, in Warlock, all these matchups. You end up drawing minimum 3 cards normally from that kind of style. Hoej is fighting back onto the board, but this Leroy is just So scary. What's that? 8, 9, 10,
Sleep
12? Yeah, that's exactly
with
12.
the buff and
yeah.
the swing.
Sword of Justice in Rogue. Getting the job done from the swashbuckler there. And Orange is going to be going 2-0 up versus Hoej. Staving off elimination with only one more win.
And it was a nice little setup right at the end there for Orange. We talked about the face versus trade line. Orange found a halfway play that then set him up for exact lethal on the following turn, given Hoej clears the amount of minions that was obvious that he would have done. That's exactly what happened. You see the play pan out. It looks very simple, but that's high-level Hearthstone in a nutshell. It looks simple after they've done it.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit weird, but I think a lot of players lock themselves into overall strategies and don't flex to like actually what's in your hand. What does your hand tell you to do? And if you've got Leroy in your hand, you've always got to consider how much damage can I do this turn, then how much damage can I do next turn with Leroy. You've got to keep adding that one up.
And now Hunter is the remaining deck for Orange, or as it's also known, the highest win rate deck in this tournament.
Yes, 100%. That's absolutely kind of crazy. We will see the Hunter played, but also I believe we have a very special guest that I've not actually personally seen yet. Cannons away. There is our, for now, current world champion.
Very true.
It's Pavel, just having a chat with a few people there. So
Sporting a fresh cut as well, looking good.
It's looking sharp, putting us to shame.
Yeah.
And there's two of my favorite Americans, at least, Dr. J and Ant. Ant is going to be playing tomorrow, and Dr. J, of course, his teammate on Space Station Gaming. They've already, in the short time they've both been on the team, spent a lot of time together, a lot of time at tournaments together. So I have no doubt that Jay's going to be a real help in terms of just support in general for this tournament.
And also just, let's say, keeping Ant focused, because I think it would be very difficult to get too stressed or too nervous while Dr. J is around.
Jay keeps things light.
Because he is,
Yeah.
what's the word I'm looking for? He's a distraction. Let's put it that
Yes.
way. It's easy to take your mind off something you're worried about when you have Dr. J around.
That's it. Sometimes distraction's quite a negative thing, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, you want a nice distraction, and that's a great definition of Dr. J. Let's get into the next game, though, between these two players. Hoej versus Orange. Orange 2-0 up. If he wins this, he is moving on through the group. But Hoej still has plenty of fight left in him, and Hoej has said to himself, well, got to win with this Paladin again. You know, I'm going to queue it again and see what happens. Orange on this Hunter, as you mentioned. What do you think of this matchup, Saul?
Well,
General first, beforehand.
right. Generally, I would like to be the Paladin in this matchup. Assuming the Hunter isn't teching Hungry Crabs against me, for example. I would like to be the Paladin most of the time. But would you like to know the highest win rate cards in Aggro Hunter, apart from Galacta Crawler against Pirate decks? Would you like to take a wild guess?
I am going to just look at certain stats. Well, Corridor Creeper's a pretty good card.
Corridor Creeper is the highest, yes.
Yeah. Mole Man is probably pretty good.
He's up there, yeah.
Followed by Razormaul's probably
Yep.
pretty good. And you know what?
Bring it all home.
Candle shot.
There you go.
We got there. Orange just saying, okay, Larry, can I just have the best cards in my opening hand for any given matchup? Yeah, of course, Orange, there you go. To be fair, only one who took Hunter to the tournament. Sometimes Hunter might do you a few favors. But yeah, this is absolutely huge, especially when Corridor Creeper's in your opening hand against a minion-focused aggressive deck as well. A lot of minions going to die early on, which means Creeper's coming out super early.
And tale as old as time, really, but in these aggro matchups where it's all about breaking early board tension, 1-3 is the shape that you want to build a basis off. The 2-1s and the 2-2s are not as attractive as a 1-3 that you can then buff and value trade. So picking up double Hans Molman right off the back is exactly what you're looking for in this matchup.
And this buff is so scary, actually, because, as you said, this is just an awkward shape. But there actually aren't a lot of decks that can deal with this early game at the moment. It just doesn't really exist. I've found it time and time again when I've ran into, say, Hunter on ladder. If they go 1-3 into Razormaul and it gets almost any of the choices, I'm like, wow, this is actually really awkward now. I might just already be taking too much damage to win.
Yeah, and that's it, like +3 attack, +1/+1, or plants are all miserable to deal with most of the time in that situation.
even like Divine Shield makes it potentially last till Houndmaster.
Right.
You know, it's a kill command activator. Almost all the issues are pain. Obviously, some stronger than others, but not even that. We can talk about the, Mole Man doing okay there. There's still a 3-2 you have to deal with as well, and often the value trade that we saw is the whole point of the buff, right? You normally buff value trade in any kind of minion focus game. It's very scary.
Must move quickly.
What do you even do as Hoej in this position?
Cry.
Anything you do, you end your turn passing back an initiative, an entire minion behind the play.
They heard you there.
Yeah, I was about to say, Ben Brode heard my call. He flicked the switch back, and now it's back to 100%.
Really? Family are watching. Fingers are crossed. This is a tough one. I think the whole crowd kind of wants both players to win, to be completely honest.
I think beyond Hoy's mother, I think Hoy's whole family are going to have to cross fingers, toes, and just about anything else that they're able to cross
Just everything.
to get Hoy out of this one, because it's not looking pretty.
It really isn't. And Paladin, this is kind of an interesting matchup in itself, because Paladin and Hunter are kind of two decks that really were the fourth deck, so to speak, like weren't even highly rated in general by most of the player base. So both players taking a little bit of risks here. It looks like Orange is maybe paying off. Again, even if no minions die, okay, 4 mana 5/5 into 5 mana 8/8. Like, what's the answer? Apart from already being ahead on the board and getting poison or making just trades into the Hydra for more damage, there actually just isn't one in the deck. Like, Tarim, but you've already been smacked twice by these minions, or once and twice respectively.
What I will say is that this 1 weak turn from Orange, this has opened the door, because now Hoy can make a play that pushes back to the board. He can make a board that's resilient to what's in play from Orange. He can swing his weapon again. He can take care of one of the threats.
Also, having the Rallying Blade in hand means that at least next turn then he can go, okay, Rallying Blade, I'm going to take damage, but I also do a lot of damage. Maybe trade off the minion that Orange is going to play next turn, and then you can swing it again the turn after. So the durability on the weapon might actually be enough to try and stabilize for Hoy, but the next couple of draws from both these players is going to be insane.
So Sacred Maul will take care of it. Corridor Creeper going down to 3, and now it's going to be Hydra into Hydra over the coming turns.
Ow. That is the best scripture I've got. This one is going to hurt. Hoy still has like 1.5 turns-ish to draw Tarim. Still got to deal with the second Hydra, but if you can just get rid of this Corridor Creeper, then the Hydra on top of that with Tarim, for example, not next turn, the turn after, then there's a chance. But again, the problem with Hunter, or playing against Hunter, is the kind of immovable object that is that hero power. Or sure, it's more relevant, unstoppable force that is that hero power. You only have X turns to live and to win the game in. Probably about as good as it's going to get this turn, right?
Finja certainly creates a dilemma for Hoy. It looked like a fairly clear Rallying Blade turn leading up until this point, but of course that was draw dependent, and Finja now being drawn might just be the counter swing that Hoy needs to bank on. He has to hope that, Finja can interact with some small minions that Orange might have in his hand at this point, but he's seeing Orange float mana over the last few turns. He saw an awkward turn with Candle Shot and the second Dire Mole come down on turn 3. He saw this turn then again float 1 mana on turn 4. So he knows there are alley cats, for example, in the hand right now. He has a decent read that these are either situational cards like Kill Commands or Unleash the Hounds, or they're large minions like Billetide Hydra.
Yeah, what's kind of funny here is like if Orange actually goes for the trade, then he can create a situation where Finja needs that like weird 1 damage to happen, which is actually very difficult outside Juggler to get that like 1 weird damage left on the worm to be able to kill it off with Finja and get the Murloc draw.
I mean, you don't need to trade to create that scenario, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Just hit face, it's the same spot, and you hit them for 5 more. Now they have 5 less health.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, then any buff or any one damage does the same job, right? I was thinking if any buffs change anything with the Murlocs, but I don't think they do.
Trading here would play around Sunkeeper Tarim. It would allow you to keep a minion around following that.
It messes up the weapon as well, right? The Rallying Blade?
Sure.
Because now, like, you can't Rallying Blade first and then trade the Finger in. Kind of moot now, the wall leader stuff. Interesting how Orange chooses to do with the outcome of this Finger, whether he takes the trade approach or whether he just says, I have an 8/8. Bang. You know, like, because there's plenty of damage when you add up hero powers, like next turn, even as if he wants to be super mana efficient, Houndmaster and hero power for extra immediate damage, and Orange might decide he doesn't even need the second Hydra at this point.
Ooh. Double War Leader is huge for Hoej now, though, because that creates so much counter push coming back the other way.
Look at that damage.
Yep. So if Hoej goes Houndmaster hero power, he pushes 10 plus 1 from the weapon is 11, and then he has Beast kill command on the following turn if he draws one.
Yeah. Oh no.
What to
Pushes
do?
13, right?
Oh, sorry, yes, you're right. Yeah, pushes 13, and then has Beast plus kill command
my own
plus hero
Hunter
power.
Master, and I was like, Hunter Master, the few ones I can actually do. It's just +2.
Totaling 20, he's a charge short on the weapon. So
That's exactly the calculations Orange are doing right now, by the way. That is, he's 100% working backwards. But if you trade... This is tough now. Double Wall Leader's insane.
Now. What to do?
I mean, if he doesn't kill one of them, it's lethal, so he has to kill one.
right.
Or, you know, obviously Houndmaster would soak up damage, but he can't, like, go crazy and go face with everything, you know, like, kill command hero power or anything, because he has to kill it, because we can see that it would have been lethal with a requirement of only 3 more damage.
Yeah, just chooses to take back the board, and I like this decision in the long run for Orange, because it's very easy to look at a hand like, you know, a potential board state of Hydra, Houndmaster, and see that as a very aggressive state that kills your opponent. It's also just a ton of stats.
Yeah.
So you can actually just take a step back and just play minion for minion, stat for stat against your opponent for a few more turns here, knowing that Hydras and Houndmasters, on average, can test just about anything your opponent's going to throw at you.
Yeah, Orange here, though, is definitely rolling the dice with the Megasaur draw. Megasaur into Poison. Don't even know how Orange comes back from that, actually. Because at the moment, there's no way to kill a second Murloc, or a third. And one kills one Hydra, you play the other Hydra, dead. And 3 damage, so... The Megasaur would have been an insane draw there for Hoej, but still he's managed to go wide enough. 2 2/4s, a 1/1 and a 2/3 plus Rallying Blade still in hand. Is he thinking about not playing it? What are the benefits to not playing Rallying Blade here? I can't see any.
He's just considering where he wants the attack to go, whether he's going to kill the 8/5 or whether he just wanted to swing into face.
So removes the Houndmaster power. What's it?
Crucially, though, hero power this turn, hero power next turn, plus the Leroy only gets him 10.
Yeah.
Who to shoot?
And again, I don't think you can be that straightforward when you have Hydra, right? Because there's still so many cards that would stop that happening. Still a Maul in the deck that could give everything Taunt. Megasaur that could give Taunt, Spite Ridge Steed, Sunkeeper Tarim, a Righteous Protector. You know, there's too many things that would set that up incorrectly, but the Hydra going to put a ton of pressure on, and now Hoej cannot tank the Hydra. You cannot face tank it now.
Nope.
Oh, Rock Pool Hunter. I just named a lot of cards again.
Yep.
That would have been insane for Hoej, and almost game-winning. And I feel like the theme of this series, for Hoej at least, is just the whiff on the draw.
Yep. And now he's in a spot where there's only 5 power in play. Rockpool Hunter only adds 1. So he can't remove the Hydra without face tanking it, and he can't face tank it. And again, you just set it up. He had a huge chunk of his deck that gave him
Tons
lethal
of
outs
it.
in that position.
Also, again, call to arms, getting stuff like juggling to minions into Righteous Protector. For example, you know, there's even more cards when you start adding out the weird draw mechanics.
Right. Yeah, call to arms with Juggler could have potentially been lethal, and then all of the cards that prevented lethal, all of the taunt outs that you listed, come back the other way. Orange, definitely you'd have to say got a little bit of the rub of the green in that series in terms of those outs not lining up for Hoej. But the story this time is a very, very clean performance by Orange with all of his decks, not struggling this time whatsoever. And that Hunter, that big risk, that comfort pick, that pick that caused Orange to say, I'm the idiot that brought Hunter, is still 100% win rate in this tournament.
Yeah, Orange takes the elimination win over Hoej. Let's hear what he thinks about that series as he's with down on the stage.
Orange, you mentioned that you didn't want to play Hoej. He was the only person in the group that you didn't want to face because of lineup, and also he's a good friend. Now that you've taken him out effectively 3-0 and swept him, has your feelings on that changed at all?
I still feel like Hoej was favoring this series, and he was the person I wanted to face, at least because of both the reasons you mentioned. We made a promise to each other, though, that whoever wins this match has to make it out of groups at least, so I'm going to try to live up to that promise.
Right, now you have to win because you represent all of Hoej's hopes and dreams as well. Did you expect it to go that way, though? I think a lot of people were surprised at the result.
We talked a little bit about it before the match. We knew that it was going to come down to the Paladin versus the Hunter. All of our decks, except those two, were pretty good against each other. So like getting a win with the Aggro Druid or the Warlock or me with Priest and Rogue wasn't going to be that big of a problem. So even after being 2-0 up, I wasn't feeling amazing. I knew that it was the Hunter that needed to get it done. But yeah, I'm happy with a 3-0.
Well, you mentioned Hunter, and that was a class that people weren't really expecting much at the World Championship, but you've played 2 games of Hunter and you won both of them, and then you were talking about bringing Aggro Druid instead of it. You chose Hunter, and now Aggro Druid is struggling a little bit. So I think, do you feel validated at all with Hunter's performance today?
It's been a roller coaster of emotions, really. I felt confident in Hunter after submitting it. Then it dipped a little bit after hearing people's opinions about it. But then I played it like so much the last few days, so just like reassured that it was the correct thing to bring Hunter. And I'm really happy I did, and I think it's actually a pretty good choice for this tournament.
Yeah, Hunter, a great support choice. And of course, another form of support is your parents watching live. It's the first time Orange's parents have ever watched him compete. How much does that mean to you to see them on the world stage like that?
It means so much. I got to run out and give them a hug right before this match, and just to have them here and know they're here supporting me, it means everything, really.
Oh, isn't that sweet? Well, congratulations. A round of applause for Orange, who's able to survive and take down Hoej, the spring champion. And with that, we're going to hand it back over to Raven side off the desk.